Thanks for that, Rick. Tune in next week to see what else he discovers in Mexico City. Over to Ollie Dabbous now, who's joining me in the studio and guiding us through his standout stew. Ollie, you ready to cook?
I'm here, ready to go.
Let's do it. Right, let's run through the ingredients. What do we got here?
Right, so here we've got ingredients for some spiced lamb that's going to top the flatbread.
Okay.
So in the pan, we've got some lamb mince that's already been caramelised. So it's not just taking it from the raw to that sort of grey cooked colour, it's taking it from grey to brown. So you've got all that surface area.
So how long is that?
And it's all caramelised. So it takes a good 20 minutes, stirring it repeatedly to break it up. And you want to season it well as well to cut through that fat content.
So you're looking for it to be kind of crispy rather than that
exactly.
soft melted.
So it will soften again as you braise it.
Okay.
Then in the pan next to it here, I've got 2 red onions that we've just caramelised a little bit in olive oil and salt. So mix that in. Give it a stir. Now some spices. So teaspoon of fennel seed. A teaspoon of toasted cumin seed.
Okay.
And this just adds a little bit of poke, the black pepper as well.
Yeah.
But probably the key spice to this dish is going to be the cinnamon stick. Okay. So that adds a real kind of gentle warmth. It transforms it into something quite comforting, quite indulgent.
And that was fennel seeds, you said?
Fennel seeds, yeah.
I mean, at what point, when you look at these recipes, I'm going to do this, do you look at the traditional recipe and go, yeah, I'm going to add this, I'm going to change this?
Yeah, I think things should just feel right, so when you do them, so I think gut instinct counts for a lot. So empty this bowling ball of a pestle and mortar into the pan. So we're just going to toast the spices a little bit, kind of wake them up.
Now, let's just talk about the lamb fat.
Absolutely.
Lamb mince, notoriously fatty, but you actually want that for this
and
dish,
we're keeping it in that dish, and I'm adding flour now.
So you'd never tip it off?
I personally wouldn't. I think fat's flavour. In the Mediterranean, people cook with huge amounts of olive oil and.
What would you do?
Fat is flavour. If it's good lamb, good quality young lamb, the fat is sweet. It's delicious. If it's older, kind of more muttony, then maybe not so, because it might interfere with the flavour of the dish. But yeah.
But that's ultimately what's going to make it really rich.
It will. It'll give it a real sort of depth and body. So adding a couple of cloves of crushed garlic, 250 ml of wine. And we'll just bring that to the boil. We don't want to boil it too much. We want to keep the acidity of the wine. Okay. So again, that's going to cut through some of the fat content from the mince. Then a little bit of tomato puree and some tinned cherry tomatoes. And then finally, a little bit of water, so about the same amount of volume of the tomatoes.
Just out of interest, any reason you go for tinned cherry tomatoes over,
a little bit sweeter. I mean, it's fine to go, given I'm sure there's a shortage of tinned tomatoes, whatever tomatoes you can get your hands on. But the cherry ones are a little bit sweeter. Okay. So we're going to bring that up to simmer. We're going to cook that for about 40 minutes to an hour. You can do that on the stove, or you can do it in the oven. And what you end up with is something very rich. Very rich. So all the flavours mingle, it reduces, it thickens. So you've actually got something very indulgent there. And we're just going to finish that. We've got a little bit of oregano. Okay. Powdered is my actually preferred variation of
fresh
oregano. Yeah, so for this kind of thing, it's just got a bit of pokiness.
You're making noises?
Yeah, I dried oregano since I was a kid. We'd always use that. I've got Greek relatives, and they educated us on the different qualities of, you got to get good dried oregano, and you don't want it sitting in your press or your cupboard for years on end. But I would agree with sauces like this, dried oregano.
Well, fresh is delicious, but I think on this one, if I was going to use it, I'd probably just add it at the end, so scattering it on top.
So let's just talk about, you just threw the raisins in there.
Yeah.
So tell us about these. This is quite interesting.
Added, some golden raisins. They're soaked in jasmine tea, just as if you're making a regular sort of mug of it. Okay. And
what's that doing?
Basically, it just gives a top note. It gives a little bit of exoticism. With this stew, you've got the lamb, the spices. It's quite earthy. They're quite sort of musky flavours. Yeah. So just that jasmine tea just gives a little sparkle. Parsley, including the stem, really generous. Again, it elevates something from being quite rich to something with a bit more bit more sort of interest as such.
Okay, interesting. You're chopping up stem.
Yeah. It's got a really lovely kind of grassy flavour, and I was going to say they use coriander stem in Asian cooking, so no reason why we can't use parsley over here. So that's ready to go. That's going to be the middle layer. Underneath is going to be the flatbread. So we're going 375 ml of room temperature water.
Okay.
2 teaspoons of dried yeast. We've got 400 gram of strong white bread flour.
Okay. Is this one you do a lot?
Yeah, it's a flatbread recipe that we serve on Hyde ground.
Where you're relaying the ingredient list.
So yeah, I've done it a few times before. Yeah. But at home as well, actually. I've made this a few times on the barbecue while the weather's nice. It's a great one to serve. So basically, this gets worked for about 15 minutes.
Okay.
With bread recipes, whether flatbread or regular bread, the dough is always a little bit wetter than what people expect it to be. That's normal. It should be if you want a light dough. The other sort of secret that I would say that people don't always realise is it's a process that we call autolyzing. So it's that's basically the flour and the water bonding and hydrating. So if you let a bread dough sit for 20 minutes before you mix it, a bit of magic happens and you get a much stronger end result. So yeah, you'll leave this for about 15-20 minutes, let it all bond, and then you get greater gluten, which is a lighter
from the
dough.
top. I love that.
So this would ordinarily have 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, use your imagination, and then you rest it and let it prove for a couple of hours. Roll it into 2 balls, and what you have is essentially this. So it looks, like a pizza dough.
Yeah.
So we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour and roll it into a slipper shape. While we're doing that, we just want to get the char grill nice and hot. You want it smoky.
Sure.
Just tastes a bit more kind of primal that way, a little bit tastier.
Now, Ollie, you've been doing Hyde at home.
We have.
Great name.
Yeah, a bit of gallows humour in
ever since the start of this lockdown. What are the challenges, would you say, of Hyde at home? Making great food and putting it in boxes.
Yeah. It has been very busy. We have had to sort of learn on the hoof as such. It's something that we're going to keep doing moving forward. So though Hyde is reopening,
is it?
Yeah, I think there still will be a demand for people that might want to wait a little bit longer. So it's good to give that alternative.
Okay.
So as a challenge, I guess, very much a different business takeaway. The logistics of you're not giving something to different tables. It's different postcodes within London.
Yeah.
So it's, I think that probably the harder thing hasn't been so much the kitchen side as the delivery and logistical side. So with the dough, so you've got a nice slipper shape. You don't want to roll it too thin because you want that pillowy kind of depth and texture to it. So we just lay that on the barbecue or char grill, as this.
So this isn't going to take long, right? We got like roughly a minute, but that's okay
for cooking it.
Yeah.
We'll crank it up a little bit.
I'm asking nicely, but
good to know. So here we've got a mix to go on top. So we've got spring onions, some mint, some tomato. Okay. So because the lamb is very, very rich, you want a lot of pop and counterpoints to cut through it. A little bit of rocket.
Pop and counterpoints. You're taking us in.
I'm noticing it.
Yeah. I think he's spot on. I love it, Ollie. This week I cooked the recipe, and you're right. It's got that richness of the lamb, but then all of those different dimensions of flavour. It really sings.
Did you soak your raisins in jasmine tea, though, Smith?
Of course he did.
You know, I may have done, Matthew. I may have done, but do you know what? I'm now thinking of what else I'm going to soak my raisins in.
Let's move on. Oh wow! Always rely on Ollie.
So with the flatbread, it doesn't take long to cook. Like I said, a bit of smoke is a good thing. So that's pretty much there now. So lamb mince going on. Nice and generous.
That is generous. It's incredibly rich. I mean, that's going to feed 2 people more than comfortably, right?
And then, absolutely. Then on go the artichokes, the rocket, the tomatoes, the spring onion, the mint.
Do you think one of your boyfriends would have liked this? Huh?
There's enough for all of them here. So we can get them all around.
We're just already
We'll send the
texting
bus.
me going, who's this other girl?
My boyfriend's actually texted me, who's the other boyfriend? Sorry, we're joking.
A little bit of feta.
There's only one.
Right. So there we have it. Smoky flatbread with spiced lamb, feta and pine nuts.
Amazing.
Gorgeous.
All right.
Very nice.
Serve this up.
Nice tips on the flatbread.
Thank you. I do it professionally.
I never heard that. About just leaving it for a quarter of an hour.
Oh yeah. Autolising.
Yeah.
All right.
Move away.
There you go.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Good boy.
Don't know why I make that noise every time.
It's like a sliding door in Star Trek sort of noise, isn't it?
Smells great. What? It's like they're sliding doors.
Yeah.
Smells amazing.
It does, doesn't it? It really does.
So good.
Can I ask? Of course. Rebecca's a pescatarian.
Yeah.
What sort of fish would you? Give me an alternative off the top of your head now.
Yeah, an oily fish like a barbecued mackerel or sardine, something like that. Keep it a little bit feral, with the oregano and those sort of, that sort of Mediterranean, sort of heat. Yeah. Don't try and pop it up or refine it.
Keep it feral, Rebecca.
Keep it feral. That's
My cooking is always feral. You could rely on that.
Right, Ollie, what do we got?
We have a Firebrand Grenache. This is from Old Vines in the Riverland. This is an Aussie Grenache that's full of flavour, but light on its feet in terms of the texture. You want something juicy to go with this recipe, but not too rich and heavy. Full of flavour, a little bit of spice, rather like a dish. It's got a bit of aromatic sort of spice to it. And I just think it's the Old Vines here. They just give more complexity, more intensity, made by a master of wine, Charles Cook. What's in the glass is quite something.
How you liking that, Rebecca? It's definitely a food wine.
I love it. Yeah, it's got a real zing to it. As then if that's a wine term, then that's the word that's coming to mind.
It is, and that freshness and that zing, Rebecca, actually comes from the Old Vines. And these lower yields that they give, it gives concentration, freshness, beautiful balance to the glass. If you can't find a Grenache, a Rioja Joven, a young Rioja, is what you want to go for. Juicy, fragrant fruit.
Ollie, this is delicious. Ollie, the wine is
Brilliant
delicious. Ollie, we haven't got time now, but later on we're going to talk about your love of windmills.